Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first edition of St. Joseph Museums Online. Gonna give us a minute and see if anyone joins us on YouTube and or Facebook. So we've decided to do both of those things for you all. I should have just posted on our St. Joseph Museums page that we are shifting our programming around a little bit. And our word for the day is adaptation, which is a bunch of changing to become better suited for the environment that you are in, including animals, people, and plants. So we are doing that today. A few of you may have seen our post trying to get programming out to you all. And as of yesterday and this morning, that plan has changed. I'm on my laptop and my phone simultaneously, so I'm trying to get you the best picture for both. Facebook, you're going to see a little bit more of the ceiling, unfortunately. And YouTube, you're going to get a little less quality video. That is what I'm working with. But adaptation-wise, we are in this world kind of competing with a lot of free education resources, and we understand that this period is tough on everyone and want to be able to still keep kids entertained, make our mission complete, and get you all access to those programming and education materials that center around our mission. And especially now, since your schools are closed, most likely, we want to be able to relieve some of that burden for all those parents out there. God bless you all. You are staying home and homeschooling your kiddos. So I'm here to try to help do that. The change being that I will be now live streaming both places, YouTube Live and Facebook Live, about 1 p.m. every day. There are going to be some that last about an hour and some that will be about 30 minutes, depending. Usually it is based around a topic or a book, and we'll do some activities, and they're all for free. But I will be including a donation link because we are a nonprofit and we unfortunately, unlike a lot of businesses, cannot just close our doors right now and send everybody home to work from home. We have to keep our collections happy and healthy, and that means keeping our temperature steady, their humidity and all that fun stuff, all those controls at a constant rate, which means we still have to have people come in and monitor that. And unfortunately, that means we have to keep the power on. So we are still having to spend lots of money without having the ability to take any in right now. So donations are very much welcome and they would be appreciated. So without further ado, I think we have 2 people on Facebook Live. Oh, 4 people now. Hello, everybody. We have not started yet. You can rest assured, just go back later and re-listen to all of our programming updates. But for now, we'll go ahead and get started on A Nest is Noisy. So for you all that live in St. Joe, we had planned to do A Nest is Noisy for our booth at the Children's Fair. So that is what we're going to start out doing today. So A Nest is Noisy. It's a relatively new book. A lot of you may or may not have read it before. If you have, shoot me a comment. I'm trying to monitor both right now. So if there's a little bit of a delay, I apologize for that. But A Nest is Noisy by Diane Hutz Aston and illustrated by Sylvia Long. I'll try to show you every page since that's, but there are a bunch of different nests that we're going to talk about. All of these are kind of mentioned in the book itself. A Nest is Noisy. She's also got a few other books in this series too, so if you like that, definitely check out the other ones. A nest is noisy. It is a nursery of chirping, buzzing, squeaking, and peeping, bubbling babies. There was a hummingbird on that page before, and there's honeybees and alligators and squirrels and little frog tadpoles here on this page. Who knew so many animals had nests? Most of the time we think about birds, but this one is a good look at all of the ones that make nests. A nest is welcoming. Many birds assemble a cradle for their eggs, knitting together leaves and twigs, and softening it with grass, hair, moss, fluffy seeds, leaf selections, leaf skeletons, and even a snake's old skin. They might also add candy wrappers, plastic bags, and bits of cloth or paper. Birds are not the only animals that make nests. Orangutans climb high into the rainforest canopy, where each day they braid a new bed of strong branches and line it with a mattress of leaves and twigs. On rainy nights, a woven umbrella of leaves keeps them dry. So this is a blue jay nest. They have woven twigs, string, leaves. There's a snake skin in there and a gum wrapper. Pretty much anything they find that thinks is neat. The snake skin actually, I learned the other day, keeps away other predators because it still smells like a snake. Fun fact. Hi, Trevor. I see you're watching. Thank you. A nest is enormous or tiny. One of the largest birds' nests in the dusky scrub fowls. Their mounded nests are made of decomposing leaves and twigs and can measure more than 36 feet in diameter and nearly 16 feet high. So that's the one down here. The smallest bird's nest, the bee hummingbirds, is a golf ball size cup of moss, lichen, bark, and leaves, usually wrapped in spider silk. The stretchy silk lets the nest expand as the babies grow larger. So there's our bee hummingbird. Super tiny nest. A nest is spiky. Elf owls and cactus wrens select a prickly nesting place as a refuge from slithering snakes and other hungry hunters. So a lot of the time, nests may not be the most comfortable from the outside, but these cacti prevent a lot of predators from coming into their nests and protecting those eggs. A nest is papery. Hornets, yellow jackets, and paper wasps scrape fibers from weathered wood and chew it until it is moist paste that dries into a tough, paper-like material. The bald-faced hornet queen makes a cell for each egg. So there's our hornet nest. So they'll go to get wood and chew it up in their mouths and then spit it back out, make a nest. Can you imagine if your house was made out of things that you chewed up and spit back out? That'd be kind of gross. A nest is pebbly. Eel-like lampreys use their suction-cup mouths to move stones the size of peas, walnuts, or even baseballs and create depressions called redds in shallow stream beds. They lay their eggs in the redds and cover them with more pebbles to hide them. There's our lamprey. A lot of fish do this as well. Salmon build their nests out of rocks and do a similar thing. A lot of fish actually try to steal their nests for their own so they don't have to build them. And we'll talk about that later because there's other things in here that steal other people's nests. Nests are even bubbly. The African gray tree frogs make a foamy nest for their eggs in branches overhanging water. With her hind legs, the female churns a substance secreted from her body into a frothy mass that, in sunlight, hardens into a meringue-like crust. A few days after the tadpoles hatch, the nest disintegrates and the tadpoles drop into the water, where they can feed and develop into frogs. So frogs' nests are bubbly. The gourami blow bubbles that pack together to form a nest that floats like a raft in still water. Under the bubble nest, the male and female spawn and they produce eggs. Once the female has released her eggs, she swims away while the male carries the eggs in his mouth and places them in the nest. After they hatch, the baby fish, or fry, swim beneath the gooey nest where they are guarded by the male until they are ready to strike out on their own. So that's another form of a bubble nest. If you all know anybody or have a betta fish also make little bubble nests like this. A nest is hot. Some South American ovenbirds forge an adobe oven made with thousands of mud and clay pellets. It bakes in the sun. The nest is a cozy place for their eggs. So this is the ovenbird. And it looks like a little adobe outside fire pit, but it's made of mud and basically a brick, but it holds in heat for the nighttime when it gets super cold and stays shaded during the day in the desert. An alligator piles decaying plants and mud to create a mat. In the center, she digs a hole where she lays her eggs and then, with her forelimbs and jaws, covers the rest of the nest with more vegetation to keep them warm until they hatch as squeaking babies. The temperature of the nest determines the sex of the alligators. So alligators also build nests, and it comes out if they're a boy or a girl, depending on how hot that temperature of the nest is. A nest is hidden. In spring and summer, tens of thousands of female Kemp's Ridley sea turtles ride the waves together onto the Gulf Coast beaches and drag themselves up to the dunes. They use their hind flippers like shovels to dig a pit in the sand. After the turtle deposits her round, leathery eggs, she tamps down the sand with the underside of her shell and flings more sand over the nest to hide any signs of it. So turtles are very good at hiding their nests because they leave them and go back and don't watch them like a lot of other egg-laying species like birds. They aren't there all the time. They go right back to the ocean, and then the babies are left out to return to the sea themselves. One mammal that lays eggs is the platypus. I just got my light shut off on me. Director saw me. The platypus, one of only 2 mammals to lay eggs, hollows out tunnels or burrows along stream beds. With her tail, the female carries moist plant matter deep into the tunnel to make a nest and lays soft-shelled eggs the size of marbles. She adds plugs of soil in the tunnel to protect the eggs from rising waters, predators, and changing temperatures. A nest is neighborly. There are safety in numbers. Some nest builders live in colonies, where there are more ears and eyes to raise an alarm when predators, animals that eat other animals, are near. Bioweavers build nests that hang from thorny trees or palm fronds like upside-down bottles. Swinging in the air from a woven tube, each nest is protected from lizards, snakes, and bigger birds. So up the top here are those bio-nest weavers. In towns of hundreds of inhabitants, black-tailed prairie dogs make grass-lined nesting chambers within the labyrinth of burrows. When a predator is spotted, the prairie dogs bark to warn their neighbors that danger is near. So they actually build little towns of nests underground. A nest is peculiar. Army ants make living nests called bivouacs. clinging to one another's legs and jaws or mandibles. They form a writhing ball of millions of ants, suspended from a branch by a chain of more ants. Inside are chambers for the queen, a brood of eggs, newly hatched larvae, and food. So army ants actually build their nests out of themselves. Cave swiftlets concoct a nest made entirely of saliva. Swinging its head from side to side, the male spits long pearly strands onto the wall of a cave that hardens into a lacy bowl when exposed to air. Bird's nest soup, made from swiftlets' nests, is among the most expensive foods eaten by humans. Let that sink in. People pay to eat these spit nests in a soup. They look like that. A nest is muddy. Flamingos erect a heap of mud, grass, and stones up to 12 inches tall, and then lay one single egg in a depression at the top. The height protects the eggs from changing water levels and excessive ground heat. Both parents feed their hatchling crop milk from their digestive tracts until they leave the nest. So flamingos build little tiny island nests for their babies. A nest is adopted. Some creatures choose nests made by others to brood their offspring. Cowbirds and common cuckoos lay their eggs in nests of other birds, where they are hatched and raised by the mother of a different species. The buff-breasted paradise kingfisher flies like a torpedo at a termite nest, smashing into the hard mound with its beak, and sometimes dying in the process, to blast a hole into the side. Inside the mound, they peck out a tunnel leading to a chamber, where they lay their eggs. Termites seal off the tunnel from the inside, so their nests are separate. There's our termite mound. Those are two of the animals I had mentioned earlier that steal their nests from other people. So a nest is noisy. It's buzzing, swishing, rustling, flapping, and humming with babies, but only until they are ready to fly, swim, or crawl away. Then a nest is quiet. And then there are some of the animals we talked about today. The end. So I do have a few activities to go along with what we learned in the book A Nest is Noisy. I have a matching game, and if you all want to comment your answers to, I'll be showing you a nest, and then you all can comment what you think the animal is that lives in this nest. Later, we'll be talking about a little bit more about birds and their beak shapes and how we can tell what they eat from what their beak looks like. And a few of Missouri's birds that you can see in your own backyard. And I'll be sharing a link to 50 bird species and their sounds where you can go online and click on this bird and it'll give you the call or the sound that it makes. And a lot of the same Missouri backyard birds are on there. So if you've ever heard a bird and don't know what it is, you can look on this list and figure it out and try to match up what you've been hearing in your backyard or around town. And then you're going to help me build a nest because I've got some eggs here that I would like to make a comfy, cozy home for. But let's start with our matching game. So what animal do you think makes this nest? If you guessed BioWeaver, you would be correct. There's this bright yellow bird that they weave these together. And so you come up in here, and then the egg sits right in here. What about this sandy nest? It's from a sea turtle. Next is this big bubbly nest. Do you all remember what used bubbles from the book? One of them were tree frogs. Now, if you go outside right now, since the trees and haven't started making the big leaves yet, you may be able to see some of these nests around yourself. They're super easy to spot when there aren't any leaves around. They're a little bit harder to do it in the summertime. These nests belong to squirrels. There's a little tiny baby squirrel. He doesn't have any hair yet. Sometimes squirrels will adopt babies as well. All right, what about this one? These are those cave swiftlet nests that are made out of spit on cave walls. Now, we are busy making a cave here at the Wythe Tootle Mansion for an upcoming exhibit. And I don't think that we're going to add any cave swiftlet nests inside of it. But you never know. Maybe one will come inside the mansion, hopefully not, and build a nest. Our cave is more for glowing rocks, so no birds allowed. What about this big guy up in a tree? These nests are for bees. Sometimes the size can depend on how many bees there are. Usually, they'll kind of do the same process like the swiftlets do or wasps. They'll go and get some wood or other paper material and chew it up real fine and then spit it back out. They'll make it process by process. So they start on the inside and make little chambers, and then they wrap the whole thing around. So it takes quite a few days to make that nest, like it would take you quite a few days to make a house. What about this guy? It's really hard to see, but it's kind of in the side of a river. It's for platypuses or platypi. They're one of the only mammals that make nests like this because they have to keep their eggs safe. But it's usually in the banks of a stream, and it's a little higher up so that it doesn't get flooded, but they use really soft mud and moss and grass inside to keep their eggs safe. Do you remember what these were from? We saw a pretty good picture of them in the book. They're for flamingos. It looks kind of like a tiny volcano. All right. What about this nice woven branches and bunches of leaves? And it looks like it's pretty high up in the tree because that one's pretty tall right there. We mentioned it early on in the book, so if you were paying attention super well, you may remember. These are for orangutans. They make a new one every day, and when it rains, they'll put a little umbrella over their heads too. Gorillas do the same thing. Usually theirs are on the ground and not up inside trees, but it can kind of depend. But most apes and primates make similar type of nest. Now this next one is super small. There is a dime in this picture, so you can kind of see relatively how big it is. For those two eggs fit in this nest that's about a dime size. That's a tiny animal. This is the home of our hummingbird. So the hummingbirds actually use spider silk in their nests, and it actually lets, as the babies grow, it expands the nest out to match how they grow. Pretty neat way to use somebody else's stuff like webs or feathers or grass. Now this one's a little strange. It's not what we usually think of a nest. But these are those bivouacs that army ants make. Basically, they'll use these big mandibles and connect their legs together and keep each other safe because there's like hundreds of thousands of ants in one nest. Now, last but not least in our matching game is this one. Now, I've given you a clue, and it's next to a palm tree, so you know it's kind of in a warmer climate. These are homes for alligators. Do you all know the difference between alligators and crocodiles? Extra fun education fact. Alligators have really round, kind of C-shaped mouths, and usually you don't see about half of their teeth. Some of their teeth you can see, like there, but most of them are hidden. And they're a little bit smaller. Crocodiles have really pointed noses, and you can see lots of their teeth. And usually they're in saltwater, and alligators are in freshwater. So, extra alligator information you didn't even know you were going to get today. So, we've talked about lots of different animals that make nests, and I'm going to share with you a little bit more about ones that we would have some knowledge of in our own backyards. So while we're all in quarantine, we can still take trips outside in our own yards or around the block and stay 6 feet away from each other, but we should be able to see some of these. These are backyard birds of Missouri. So I will actually put in the comment section of the live stream so you can all click on it later. The 50 bird species and sounds that will get linked, and birds like the cardinal are on there. Missouri's state bird, the eastern bluebird's on here as well. You probably have started to see robins. Blue jays are pretty common around here too. Those are ones that are pretty easy to see because they're very, very colorful. Ones that are really loud but really hard to find are these wrens. They are super, super loud, but they're teeny tiny. So they're very hard to find in your trees, but they're really nice. So if you guys want to later on go walking around your own neighborhood or just from your backyard, if you can see them too, be on the lookout for some of these Missouri birds. Now, I had made my very own binoculars. They're not super scientific, so anybody can make them. They just help you focus on a specific area. So they don't increase your visibility like some binoculars do, but studies have shown they do actually help you see better because they block out a lot of your periphery. So these guys are made from toilet paper tubes or paper towel rolls. So we just grabbed 2 of them and some string, and I made them look a little better with some duct tape because I liked the color. Some of them are silver. And if you all, after this whole thing is done, would like to stop by and grab any of these that we were pre-made for the children's fair, please do so. We'll be able to give them to you, no problem. But I attached a pretty long string on there too, so I could walk around with them hands-free and then be able to spot my birds. I just use tape. Some places recommend you like staple inside here for your binoculars to keep them together a little better. I chose to not do that since these were for younger kids and no sharp edges. So that is one craft you can do with your little ones. And with that, they can also keep count, insert math skills here, of all of the birds that they see sitting or walking or flying. Some of you may see some swimming if you have some ponds or puddles nearby because it's been raining a lot. So we may have some swimming. But it's really neat to keep kind of a tally of how many you see around your house. Now, with all those birds, did you know birds' beaks actually match what they eat? So you can tell what a bird eats just by looking at it. You don't have to know anything else about it. There are, let me see, 16 of them that are pretty general. Some of them kind of go together. So we'll talk about some of them. But there are different types, like if they catch insects, they'll have long, sturdy ones to catch them with. If they're grains, they're going to be thicker, so they can like crack nuts and open wheat seeds because they need to have big, powerful jaws for that. Now, if you eat fruit, like a toucan, you're going to also need to get around some of those like hard skins or the inside seeds. Like a peach has a really hard inside seed. So he's definitely going to be able to break that or get it out of there pretty easily with that beak. Now we talked about hummingbirds. They are nectar feeding. So they've got really long, slender beaks and tongues that go with them to be able to get at the nectar inside of a flower. Because your beak has to be pretty tiny and thin to fit in the middle of one of these guys to get real deep down in there. We are also going to talk about later this week some more pollinators and how that helps our plants and our food and all that fun stuff for flowers later this week. So come back, we'll talk about hummingbirds and bees and butterflies. Now, woodpeckers, you probably heard some of these guys around. They have really hard nail-like beaks, so they can drill into wood and get insects out of that bark. Pelicans have dip nets, so they've got a really big lower bill that's kind of elasticy and it can fit water and fish in it because they have to basically just net their dinner out of the river or pond or lake, wherever they're fishing at. So these are some other fishing, but they do more instead of netting, they'll actually go out and like try to spear or catch a fish by itself. Flamingos filter feed. So they kind of filter the water and grass out, trying to get insects off of like wetland grass. So it's grass and water. So they kind of have to filter their way through that grass. some more fishing. Now, raptors and scavengers, their bills are basically like knives. So they've got this extension here that's really, really sharp to be able to, since they eat meat, tear it off bones and skin and all that fun stuff. Raptors include things like eagles and owls and hawks. So you probably see a lot of those around here too. But they are basically like knives. So they've got a fork and knife system that they use to eat their food. Their forks are their feet. So they've got these big talons that they grab onto and use that beak to be able to eat. All right, I think it is time for you all to help me build a nest. So, since we're building, I'm going to put my safety goggles on. Because you always want to be safe and protected. I need to build this nest. So, do you all remember some of the things from our nest book that they built things out of? If not, I have a neat touch board full of things right here. I'm going to move that a little closer to us so you can see. So, remember, a nest is made out of things like leaves and other feathers, twigs, yarn, fur, flowers, sand and mud, bubbles even, and grass and moss. So you can make your own nest at home by using things like your carpet and a nice soft blanket and some pillows. I'm going to use one of these chairs because that's what I have here with me right now. And I'm going to start with this big old blanket. Get it nice and round so I have a spot to put my eggs. I think that looks good. What do you all think? It's nice and colorful, which could be a bad thing. If I wanted my nest to blend in like a turtle's, it would be a lot harder for any predators to see it. But the next thing I'm going to use are toilet paper tubes or paper towel tubes, acting as my sticks. I've got some fake grass to help me weave them into my blanket. Now, I didn't use sand or mud because it's super messy, and our cleaning lady would hate me if I did. But there's other things we can do, like if I wanted to make my nest super soft, I could grab some fur. This here is actually just cotton, but I could pad that with these, or take some leaves from outside. And if I wanted to make it pretty, I just add this blue flower because blue is my favorite color. And I'm going to be sitting on these eggs for a long time, so I might as well make it pretty to look at. I'll grab all my leaves. Now, I'll grab my eggs. Here are my eggs. I have 1, 2, 3. 3 green eggs. But what's this? While I was building my nest, a 4th egg came. This one doesn't look like the others. Do you think somebody is trying to use my nest to house their eggs? I don't know. There they are, all nice and safe. Now, if you all end up watching this and sharing it with all your friends, I would love to see pictures of your nest that you make for yourself at your house. So that way, I can learn how to make my nest better. let me clean up all my mess here. So we didn't have any questions or comments during my reading. So if anybody has any right now, I'd love to be able to answer them. They can be about this or the museum in general. If I can answer them, I will let you know. If not, I'll try to get the information for you. But I'll give you guys a few just to be able to type that out. Otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow, where we are going to talk about, let's see, gratitude, some 8 basic emotions, and have a scavenger hunt around your house. So that's what you can look forward to on Tuesday. So after this live stream ends, you will be able to share it. So make sure you do that. Because I really would love your guys' feedback if you want to make these into actual in-person lessons when we are able to return to that. Thank you for bearing with me on my first live online program. I really miss having you guys here. I love interacting with you all and hearing all the questions and ideas and input you have. But hopefully we will all learn together and be able to do that as best as possible while we can in our current situation. Otherwise, this is me signing off now. Bye. Sorry about that.